Hello class, today I'll be showing you the breakdown of how to use my website for English 8 for the current academic school year. Let's start off with the basics. I'm Mr. Parkran, teaching English. Let's get into it. Pictures of previous classes are shown here, and a quote to remember from the person who inspired me to be an English teacher is from Mr. Lohr, who also taught 8th grade English. He stated that being good at English means you can BS anything, or basically means that you can use the knowledge you currently have to interpret and facilitate really anything you really want. Here's also my tutoring time. You can set it up with an email here. That's all it needs. That's for any teachers or students to help out. The teachers during the current academic semester or myself will be teaching this. Jordan Hess will be co-teaching periods 1, 3, and 7. And a student teacher named Jack Patterson from California University of Pennsylvania will be student teaching from March 11th to 15th, right before our spring break. Let's get into our tools, shall we? The first tool we'll be talking about is Powtoon. I have my example here of a sales pitch in which students will be creating. So basically for this assignment, students will be creating an advertisement or a type of propaganda to help facilitate and represent those used in wartime, and how really extreme they can be, but also trying to sell the product at the same time. Powtoon really just takes what Microsoft PowerPoint offers and adds upon it, allowing for great creativity, flexibility, and be able to present information in a fun and creative manner. A large issue with the program, however, is that it's moderately difficult to use initially, and it can be time-consuming if you're not using premium due to a lack of access to premium resources and information. Other than that, the program excels at being an all-rounder with plenty of potential as long as there's sufficient creativity, such as the example that I mentioned previous about an advertisement. You could use this as a lesson plan or a PowerPoint substitution with more infographics. The potential is limitless. Another tool I plan on using key in this program is Adobe Spark, which it functions very similar to Powtoon in that it adds to existing programs such as Microsoft PowerPoint and Google Slides. However, I found this one to be personally easier to use and more accessible than previous options such as Powtoon, and it has really good and excellent free materials, which, as I stated earlier, Powtoon lacks, although it is rather simplistic and does not allow for very creative or elaborate designs. And another feature of it is it does not allow for someone to talk over the whole entire period, and it splits up audio on a slide-by-slide basis, making it sound extremely choppy and not pleasant to hear at all. An example here leads to my Adobe Spark, which was basically talking about digital citizenship and any other additional parts to it, which that can be a project for students to help recognize how they are digital citizens and what they can do to improve it. Another aspect they could use Adobe Spark for is a lesson plan substitution for a PowerPoint, or they can use it as a kind of fun way to summarize any information from a story that they may have learned. Same thing with Powtoon, as a way to recap information in a format that isn't an essay, or maybe even for a presentation to the class. There's our resources here. Alright, the first, this really tab talks about any and all information regarding potential classroom resources such as examples, links, and surveys, with the first one here being a lesson assistance I have using Screencast-O-Matic that really talks about the features and traits of Chekhov's gun within literature and Chekhov's gunmen within media. The pros of this, it really allows for many possibilities such as project examples, lessons, assistance, and a more in-depth look, just to name a few. Students can also assess their own learning and go over parts they may have missed. Although, the cons of this, students can get easily bored and zone out. The classroom, the work itself is extremely janky, and sometimes Screencast does not work on many features just due to being downloaded, and having a microphone may not be easily accessible for all students. And there's really no way to check and see if students can use this outside of the classroom. And this is also extremely similar to a narrated PowerPoint, which is the next one we'll talk about. A narrated PowerPoint is basically screencast, but exclusive to Microsoft PowerPoint and requires no additional downloading. So what you could do this, you could have like a summary of a book, analysis, a PowerPoint, really any recaps, basically all that was listed before for the screencast, project examples, lesson assistance. All of the cons are also the same as screencast, unfortunately, in my opinion, with the big con being if a student does not have access to Microsoft PowerPoint at home, then this can actually be inaccessible for them. There have to be certain precautions to go around this, where the student will have to email the professor. That's a big con I see with this personally, and it could lead to this, honestly, not being utilized in my classroom as much as possible. Another tool I plan on using and resource is Kahoot. I believe this is a fun and interactive way of assessing and judging students and their content knowledge of a topic. This will mainly be used as a pre-assessment, and the image here, it has it hyperlinked to basically a topic. It is specifically about the traits of modern humor and the examples of it, and it can just kind of go off on top of that. It allows for other different topics to be analyzed in a classroom setting, but when the pretense of a game. Students think they're playing games, but they're actually learning the content in a really kind of creative manner. As the pros of it, it's extremely high ease of use, high student interaction and participation due to students believing it's fun and enjoyable. Other cons, it's very easy to have students get distracted from the lesson and worry about how their friends are scoring and get extremely competitive with one another. And it panders more towards specific learners and can deter from those who are not. And what I really mean by that is this panders more towards visual learners who can just think very quickly on the fly and don't have to write down anything because all the questions are timed. That's the large issue with it, which it can honestly be a hit or miss issue, but I believe the pros outweigh the cons enough for it to be used at least a handful of times. Another resource I have for my students to use is the QR code for CalU's website, which will list the potential resources it provides. And the resources are such as the People Finder, application information, and ways to contact potential future professors. Honestly, QR codes, everyone knows what they are. They know that they're easy to implement. They have many practical possibilities for use. And the cons of them is they require another service or device to use, which may be difficult for a lot of students who don't have a modern smartphone or even a laptop, second laptop honestly, to help scan this. Because I know I've seen a lot of students during my time at college and also observing other high schools that not only don't have a phone, but if they do, they also have a phone that may be outdated or the camera is not advanced enough to allow for the scanning of the QR code. Although I do believe that this is an extremely easy way to implement and have additional information for those students willing to seek it, and also allows students to process information on their own. Specifically, an example of this would be in kind of like a group assignment with stations, where each station has their own QR code that one student could analyze and show to the rest of the students in the group. And the last resource I have here is Google Forms. And the example I used in here is it goes about the topics of really safety, and especially during prom time, of liquor and any alcoholic effects. Another example of this could literally be any survey of how the student feel about the topic, so you can just reassess yourself later. The pros of this are that Google Forms is extremely easy to use, it's simple and straight to the point, although the cons are the style is very bland, blank, and boring, honestly, which can detract from students just willing to just fill out the rest of the survey, especially on the longer ones, or to really increase them being distracted. And there's not much room for creativity or differentiation. It's just how it is. The classroom rules, I have a very quick set of about 15 to 20 classroom rules, which cover very basic stuff such as arriving on time, picking up after oneself, no vandalism, treat computers with care, and then don't come to class without a hall pass. Those are just some like the very basic ones that all students should have. And I also have a non-example to help pander towards students of a very popular and famous Vine that helps me not only connect to my learners, but help appeal to their specific learning styles and sense of humor. Last bit is about me, that states who I am, what I'm doing, when I'm doing, where I'm at, why I'm doing what I'm doing, how I'm doing it. This also helps teach students the 5 W's and the lesser known 1 H of how to analyze any story or critique any story. And also lastly, it states how I'll be using web in my profession. The web and internet will not only be used, but utilized within my classroom as a tool for students to use. Some ways students will utilize technology will be with reviews, surveys, and games for students to help assess their knowledge and improve upon it. One key aspect that will differentiate my class from any other students' English classes is the use of internet when referring to stories or other assignments. The student will be presented with the option of getting a passing grade, which is probably about a C, by putting in the time to read summaries and analyses of the book that they have assigned to them. Or they can read the book and use the tools online as a fact checker and establisher. This helps students not only learn how to look for others' opinions, but to also practice studying. If a student just reads summaries, they can follow the discussion, and I'll make sure they can follow discussion by reading them myself, but I'll help build upon it. And in the story, the student can follow discussion very well and make comments of their own, but if they have both, then they can help compare and contrast of what critics may have to say, or anyone who would analyze the case for a grade may have to say about a certain story in comparison to what they have to think. And those students will earn the best grades of all, because it shows that they will put in the effort to not only go above and beyond what is expected of them. But real quick, if I have to go to the who, I'm Michael Pochran. I will be teaching your child this year. I graduated from Jefferson Morgan High School, and I'm currently attending California University of Pennsylvania, the Harvard on the Mon. The current goal is to study and to be an English teacher from grades 6 to 12 and graduate in spring of 2021. One of my main professional goals, other than being an English teacher, is to eventually become principal of a high school after teaching for a minimum of 7 years and passing all the requirements in higher education with a master's degree. Some very quick trivia. I'm a huge fan of controversial opinions. Devil's Advocate's my favorite. And go upon this, Harry Potter? Nah, it's straight trash, and it's unoriginal. Tolkien is the main inspiration for all this, and he created basically everything we know of fantasy today. I'm a huge video game fan, and I play competitively in some first-person shooters and fighters. And lastly, I'm a drummer and perform with the California University of Pennsylvania Drumline. Thank you, and have a good day.